President Biden and his staff just don't seem to be on the same page. We have seen the White House walk back or contradict many of the president's controversial remarks time and time again on issues including the pandemic, the threat of a rail strike, and the baby formula shortage. Watch this.
I became aware of this problem sometime after April, and during early April, about how intense it was. And so we did everything in our power not to went out, and that's all I can tell you right now. And we're going to continue to do it.
I'm not saying when the president knew or didn't know. He spoke, I know he spoke to that himself, so I'm going to let that stand. I am saying that we have been working on this. We, as a whole of government approach, has been working on this since the recall, which was in February. The president is indeed involved directly, but I don't want to get into details at this time, but he has been involved. And we have said, I just said the president has been directly involved. He's been in touch. I said, this is the third time I'm saying he's been directly involved.
Can you talk about what the holdup is, Mr. President?
I can't because it's the middle of negotiations still. But
have you been in touch with the parties again? My
team has been in touch with all the parties, in rooms with the parties, and I have not directly engaged yet because they're still talking.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape.
Here we are going into the third year of it, and we are still in the middle of a pandemic. Wear a mask where appropriate in indoor settings when you have a crowded situation.
So they're all contradicting each other. He says one thing, they say another thing. Sometimes they try to do, as Harris likes to say, the cleanup on aisle 7 to help him out a little bit. Dagan, where do you want to start with this one?
I don't think that they actually tell Joe Biden what to say because he probably wouldn't listen if they did. He will so blithely lie about anything. They let him just free agent away. And then they just try to, mop it up after the fact. What bothers me more, rather than the contradictions, is the coordinated lying when we get that. And I will point to when you had Alejandro Mayorkas, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden stand up in front of the American people more than a year ago and lie about border agents on horseback whipping Haitian migrants. They did not whip them. They were trying to corral these illegal migrants, and they stood up there and they lied and they lied and they lied. And it was the only time they've gotten angry about the border crisis and the open border that they created. And it's appalling that they've never stood up and said, we lied, we apologize.
That's an excellent point. Back to COVID. Obviously, he was standing there himself. In one breath, he's saying, well, it's not over, but it is over. But there are signs it's over. I mean, it's very confusing listening to this president. And that's part of the problem. And if you remember the time that he was at the White House and they had the Easter Bunny trying to usher him away, it's because a lot of times they don't want him to talk.
Yes, well, that's the emergency last stop. Send in the Easter Bunny or whatever festive character we have available to shut him up and move him along. Look, Joe Biden has told lies his entire career. His son died in Iraq. He did not. His grandfather was a coal miner. He was not. He knows who Olivia Rodrigo is. He does not, I promise you. So you watch this, but it really speaks to a press corps that will not hold the president accountable because they seem to be aligned ideologically. So they look the other way in every instance. But when you have this story, Dagan, was so offensive about that our agents would be whipping migrants.
Yeah.
And it was so obviously ridiculous, but they all went out and gave voice to it, and they kept it alive for months. And even when it's over, and this is my larger point, they're not held accountable, and there is no regret at any moment, and no expression of I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is not serving the American people. We need a pure information flow so we can make decisions properly.
Peter Doocy and Jackie Heinrich do try to hold them accountable. Yeah. It's difficult, though, because a lot of times they'll ask Karine Jean-Pierre a question and she will flat out lie, like saying the president's been to the border.
Well, she just keeps repeating the same talking point over and over again, because maybe if she says it 3 times, people will stop asking her the question that she does not answer ever. Listen, I don't know what's more concerning, the fact that the president doesn't remember conversations that he does or does not have, or the fact that there really is such a major disconnect and lack of communication within his administration. Either way, it explains a lot of things that are happening. But what you guys are talking about is the fact that there are no consequences for the things that come out of the president's mouth. Prime example, end of summer 2022, President Biden came forth and said, you know what, we're going to have the updated boosters. They're going to be available for American people. They'll be ready to go by September. This was before the FDA even looked at the data suggesting whether the boosters are safe and effective and who should get them. And as a result of the words coming out of his mouth, you had 2 high-level members of FDA who retired early because they could not be within the FDA because of the pressure coming from the White House.
Kara, what do you think? Because a lot of people say, well, this is about age. He doesn't necessarily have control of what's coming out of his mouth. I'm not sure if it's that or just general ineptitude.
Yeah, he's used that excuse over and over again. Remember when he had to drop out of the presidential race because he plagiarized? Yeah. Joe Biden is a liar. That's who he is. He's not good old Uncle Joe, but a lot of people will excuse him because he's the avuncular, guy who shuffles around in the corner and smiles at people, wears aviators. No, not at all. This is who he is. This is at the core of his character. And frankly, he is the kink in the Democrats' armor. The Democrats are really good at this. They have their talking points go out and everyone falls in line. We were talking about some of the disarray in the conservative and Republican Party. It's because, we have a cacophony of ideas. We believe in the marketplace of ideas, and the best one wins out. Joe Biden is the one guy they can't control. Poor them, but I think the American people don't benefit because of that. It's horrible.
That's a good point. We're going to have to leave it there.